Hi, thank you for joining me today. I will be making my version of Azia and Karma's dog food that they typically have on a daily basis. I do change this recipe up every now and then just so that they have something different. Most of the time the meats are typically the same, so they have something from a beef, a fish, a chicken, and a turkey with some organs. So today we're making ground beef, ground turkey with beef chunks, chicken hearts and chicken gizzards, and 2 chicken breasts. We have salmon, a beef liver, and a calf liver. For the vegetables, I did prep them the other day and freeze them just so that we could be prepared a couple days ahead. So we're boiling sweet potatoes, carrots, spinach, string beans, and broccoli together with the meats. So what I'll start off with is browning my ground meats first, and then putting everything else in the pot to boil. So once the pot is nice and hot, what I'll do is I'll typically just take a spoonful of coconut oil, just so that there's a layer of oil in the bottom before I start browning my ground meats. Because there's a little extra, I'll do two spoonfuls of coconut oil today. So once the coconut oil has melted a little bit, I'll throw in my ground meats. I'm going to start with the turkey just because there's a little more turkey than beef today. And you can hear it sizzling a little bit. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just start to break it up. It all the way. We just want it a little bit brown just so that when it boils, it's kind of not mushy when it boils, but since it's already brown. Alright, since that's going a little bit, I'm going to put in my beef. He's just peeking over here. Normally when I start cooking their dog food, Karma will be right next to me. This is how it's looking so far. Put that back down. And I do have it cooking on high heat. So now that it's browned a little bit, I'm going to start to put in our bone broth. So I do switch back and forth between beef bone broth and chicken bone broth. Again, it's just different flavorings for the girls that I've noticed they enjoy having different flavors every now and then. So I do try to switch between chicken and beef bone broth. Sometimes I'll mix it if we have a really big, boil that I'm making for them. And this is, again, beef bone broth. I'm also going to add some water with the bone broth. Alright. So what I like to do is put enough water where it's covering everything, and I'll go back and add more water once everything's in the pot. So I'll typically put the bone broth and then 1 container of the bone broth in it, and then I'll start adding my meats. So what I typically start with is all the chickens. So the chicken breasts and the chicken gizzards and the chicken hearts go in first. I'll mix that up. And then from here I'll add the beef chunks. Now the beef chunks, I typically keep it the way the store has it sold, as like the beef stew chunks. If there's large chunks, I'll cut them in half or smaller pieces, just so that Azia doesn't have a hard time chewing. We are trying to get Karma to learn how to chew. She's our but Azia, our 13-year-old pit bull, we're just trying to make sure that things are a little easier for her as she's getting older. So now that we have our chicken and our beef boiling for a little bit. It's still not cooked all the way, so that's where I like it, where it's not cooked all the way, but it's been cooking for a little bit. I want to say it's been about 3 or 4 minutes since we put it in. I'm going to now add my beef liver that I just freshly cut. It's still a little frozen, that's why it looks that way. So we're going to dump that in. I'm going to push it down a little bit so that it's not sitting right at the top. Alright, and then I'm going to dunk my salmon in as well. Give that a little bit of a mix just so that everything's kind of combining at this point. Alright, now that all the meats are added in, I'm going to also add in turmeric powder. And I'm just going to do a teaspoon of turmeric powder. You know what, today we'll do 1 teaspoon. The girls don't really like it, but it is good for them. Give that a stir. Add our vegetables as well. I actually forgot to cut up my celery the other night, so I just freshly cut these this afternoon as well. And then everything we prepped the other night, I typically try to do big batches of fresh vegetables for them. So what I'll do is I'll do a night of just cutting all the vegetables, packing them up for each time I'm cooking for them. So we'll have a couple bags of frozen vegetables ready to go once they're ready, and then I'll buy the meats fresh whenever I'm ready to cook another batch of dog food for them. So we're just going to add these in. Again, we have broccoli, celery, string beans, carrots, and sweet potatoes all in this bag. And I'll write the measurements of each in the descriptions as well, so that you can reference the different measurements of everything that we're adding today from this bag. Just going to dump this in. There we go. I typically leave the vegetables on the top, especially when the meat's cooking. I like to leave the vegetables on top just so that it pushes the meats down a little bit and gets the heat from the bottom of the pot. And then we'll mix it. As it's cooking, we'll stir it up so that it gets mixed into the meat anyways. It's just nice to kind of have that floating on top for a little bit. Alright, so now that the 20 minutes are over, what we're going to do is just stir it a little bit more and add our rice. I'm just going to give it a nice quick stir. Try to get as far down as I can to bring whatever's down at the bottom up. Alright, so we're going to add 2 cups of brown rice in as well. I had some extra from leftovers before, and I think we might be able to make it for 2 cups. Oh, we have 1 cup here. And that's our 2nd cup there. Give this a nice little stir again. Try to get all the rice mixed in it. So the rice is going to soak up a lot of the broth that you have cooking right now, just so that it's not so liquidy. Karma and Asia likes more of a thicker dog food. Although they like the broth, Asia definitely likes the broth more than Karma. They don't like it so brothy where it's a soup. I'm actually going to add 1 more cup of rice in here. I didn't realize how soupy it was, so we're going to add 1. So this is going to be the total 3 cups of rice. last cup of rice in. Now, depending on the instructions that the rice that you get, what I normally do is once I put the rice in, I cover it back up and I let it sit for another 25 minutes. Typically, by that time, the rice will be cooked all the way. Since it's mixed into the meats, that's already kind of nice and warm and hot. It shouldn't take that long. But again, depending on what the instructions of your rice says, just follow those instructions. I'm going to cover this back up and cook it for another 25 minutes. So, as you can see, I had to split my batch into 2 different pots. I instantly regretted that 3rd cup of rice after the water started to boil over. So I did boil both pots for an additional 10 minutes, so for a total of 35 minutes. The stovetop is off now, but I didn't move the pots off of the stovetop yet. I just wanted to sit a little bit longer with the lids off, just so that the broth could dry out a little bit. I had to add a little bit of extra water on this side of the pot just so that the rice could cook through. Right now, everything is off. It's going to take about 2 hours to cool down, so I normally will let it sit on the stove just until it's all the way cooled down before packing it away. Because it's such a large batch, I typically split it up so that the girls have food for the week, for this week, and then a second week is typically in the freezer, ready to go. Once halfway through the week, I'll start to kind of prep for the following week's batch. So I always have at least a week's worth of food in the house for them. I forgot to mention that I normally add eggs too, so I'm going to quickly add 6 eggs to one of the pots, and we're going to stir up those eggs. You'll see Karma and Asia in the background, definitely Asia in the background. And we'll mix these 2 pots together once it's ready to be packed up, at least getting the eggs mixed in. I'm going to cook that on low for like 5 minutes. Again, it's still warm from earlier, so at least this can cook the eggs a little faster. Sorry, this is a couple days later. We've been forgetting to film when it's dinner time for the girls. So on this side is Karma's. So it's the fresh dog food that we typically make, just warmed up for about 2.5 minutes depending on how much she's getting. And then she gets 2 cups of dry dog food. That's actually 1 cup right now. I have to mix it and then I'll put another cup in. And then Asia gets mostly fresh dog food. Sorry, Karma is letting me know that it's time for dinner. She's outside, so you might hear her barking in the background. So Asia gets mostly fresh dog food. She hasn't been eating a lot lately. As she's getting older, she has less of an appetite, so we try to give her more fresh dog food and less dry food. So she'll typically get 1 scoop of dry dog food. So what I'll do is I'll just mix in the fresh food with the dry food. And sorry, it's going to be a little shaky in this part of the video. And I'll just serve it like that. And again, we already put in their extra supplements that we typically put in. And again, that's the Dr. Harvey's Skin and Shine Salmon and Krill oil, as well as the dog hemp oil. And the dog hemp oil looks like this. So Karma will get hers mixed up like that. Asia, hers is, she typically eats the dry dog food at the top first and then goes in for the fresh food. So I'll just push it down a little bit. So she has some fresh dog food at the top. We have homemade ice cream waiting for them. Just thawing this out a little bit. So this is my aunt's homemade dog ice cream, which is peanut butter, bananas, and yogurt. So she just made that fresh the other night for them as well. So that will be their dessert for tonight. Tastes good, Asia? Karma, slow down.